What if the very thing that makes you see the world so clearly is the same thing that could break you? Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, called this his most dangerous discovery. Not a disease, not a disorder, but a rare ability, an ability to see what others can't, to notice the cracks behind the smiles, to sense the unspoken tension in a room. At first glance, you'd think this is a superpower, and in some ways it is. These people spot lies instantly. They read emotions before a word is spoken. They pick up on hidden motives that others overlook. But Jung warned, this gift comes with a devastating cost. Because when you see too much, you don't just understand people, you unsettle them. Maybe you felt it yourself. You notice patterns no one else sees. You point out problems that others would rather ignore. And instead of gratitude, you get silence, rejection, or worse, blame. Suddenly you're the problem, simply for noticing the truth. In this video, we're going to explore Jung's dangerous discovery. Why seeing what others don't can isolate you. The real psychological dangers that come with it. And most importantly, how to turn this so-called curse into the very gift that Jung believed could transform not just you, but the evolution of human consciousness itself. So let's go back to 1913, where Jung first met a patient whose extraordinary perception would change everything he thought he knew about the human mind. When Carl Jung first met the patient who would change his entire understanding of human perception, he didn't think he was dealing with illness. He thought he was seeing something extraordinary, something that was both a gift and a curse. It was 1913, and Jung himself was in the middle of his own personal crisis. He had just split from Sigmund Freud, his mentor and intellectual partner, and he was struggling with visions, dreams, and insights that felt almost overwhelming. In the middle of that storm, a young woman walked into his practice. She wasn't delusional, she wasn't hallucinating. In fact, she was eerily accurate in everything she described. She could walk into a room, and without anyone speaking a word, she knew who was lying. She sensed who was hiding resentment. She felt who was secretly in pain. Jung checked her observations, and time after time, she was right. This wasn't guesswork. This wasn't paranoia. It was perception, an almost surgical ability to see straight into people's hidden lives. At first, you might think, that sounds incredible. Who wouldn't want that kind of insight? Imagine never being fooled, never being manipulated, never missing the truth about someone's real feelings. It's the kind of skill comic book heroes are made of. But Jung quickly realized this so-called superpower came with devastating consequences. The woman couldn't engage in small talk, because small talk is built on little white lies and polite masks, and she saw straight through them. She couldn't keep friendships, because people felt exposed around her, like standing in front of an X-ray machine. She couldn't hold down a job, because just by showing up, she disrupted the fragile illusions that allow groups to function. Her gift wasn't making her life better. It was isolating her, exhausting her, and cutting her off from the very human connections she longed for. Jung saw the paradox. The more clearly she saw, the more alone she became. And he started to realize this wasn't just about one patient. This was about a rare type of person. People who live with what he called differentiated perception. They don't just read obvious body language. They sense unconscious material, the stuff other people don't even realize about themselves. Now, here's the crucial point. Jung stressed that this was not pathology. These people weren't crazy. In fact, they were accurate. So accurate, it made everyone else uncomfortable. Their gift wasn't a malfunction. It was an advanced feature of human consciousness. But it came at a cost, and that cost was heavy. Think about it in your own life. Have you ever noticed a friend acting strangely, and when you gently asked if something was wrong, they snapped back, "Stop being so negative"? You're imagining things. Or maybe you predicted a relationship falling apart, not because of gossip, but because you picked up on a tension no one else admitted. Did people thank you for your insight? Probably not. Most likely they rejected it, or even turned on you. That's the curse side of the gift. Seeing too much doesn't make you popular. It makes you dangerous, because the moment you reflect back what others don't want to see, you become a threat. Jung wrote about this again and again in his notes. The danger isn't in the perception itself, but in the psychic isolation it creates. Imagine being the only one in the room who sees the elephant sitting in the corner. Everyone else insists, There's nothing there. Do you stay silent and carry the burden alone? Or do you speak up and risk everyone labeling you the problem? That's the impossible position these highly perceptive individuals find themselves in. And it's not just social rejection. The psychological toll is brutal. Constantly picking up on what others miss can drain your energy. It blurs the line between what's yours and what belongs to someone else. You can start to lose touch with your own identity, drowning in the flood of unconscious material you absorb from your environment. This was the reality Jung uncovered. Superior perception isn't automatically a blessing. It's dangerous. It destabilizes groups. It isolates the individual. And if you don't learn to integrate it, it can even erode your sense of self. But Jung also believed something else, something radical. He believed this dangerous gift, if developed wisely, could transform a person into something extraordinary. These individuals weren't broken. They were pioneers of consciousness, people carrying insights humanity wasn't ready to face. The challenge wasn't to suppress their vision or hide it away. The challenge was to integrate it, to learn how to carry it without being destroyed by it.
This was the starting point of Jung's most dangerous discovery, the realization that seeing what others don't can either exile you or evolve you. Imagine walking into a crowded dinner party. The room is buzzing, laughter everywhere, people swapping stories. On the surface, everything looks perfect, but then you notice something others miss: the tightness in someone's smile, the subtle eye roll when a spouse talks, the tone of voice that doesn't match the words. You sense the resentment, the hidden sadness, the lies politely wrapped in small talk. Most people would say, don't overthink it, just enjoy the night. But if you're one of those rare people Jung studied, you can't unsee it, and that's the problem. Jung realized society doesn't run on truth, it runs on agreements, unspoken rules about what we're allowed to notice and what we're supposed to ignore. We agree not to point out that our boss is insecure. We agree not to mention that our friend's marriage is cracking. We agree to laugh at jokes we don't find funny, just to keep the peace. These little lies are the glue of social life. They hold families, friendships, and even entire nations together. So what happens if you see through them? You become dangerous, not because you're wrong, but because you're too right. Jung wrote that the danger lies not in the perception itself, but in the disruption it causes. The moment you break the illusion, you shake the foundations of the group. Think about it. If one person points out the elephant in the room, suddenly everyone else has to deal with it too. That's uncomfortable, and most people will do almost anything to stay comfortable. Fast forward to today, and you see the same pattern everywhere. On social media, if you question the narrative, you get labeled a troublemaker. In workplaces, if you challenge the way things are done, you risk being sidelined. Even in families, if you speak up about a hidden problem, you might get told, "Why can't you just let things be?" The truth is, people don't hate the truth. They hate what the truth demands of them. Because once you see clearly, you can't pretend anymore. If your friend admits they're unhappy in their marriage, they may have to change. If a company admits it's toxic, it may have to rebuild. If a society admits its shadows, it may have to evolve. And evolution is painful. So instead of changing, people often attack the one who noticed. They treat the truth-teller as the problem. History is full of these examples: prophets, philosophers, whistleblowers. From Socrates in Athens to modern activists, the pattern repeats. Those who see too clearly are silenced, ridiculed, or exiled. But Jung added something deeper. He believed this wasn't just social politics, it was psychological defense. When someone reflects back the parts of ourselves we don't want to see, our unconscious reacts. We feel threatened. We lash out. That's why people who see too much often feel like mirrors nobody wants to look into. And here's where it gets really fascinating. Jung warned that this isolation isn't just social, it's existential. If you consistently see what others deny, you begin to feel like you live in a different reality altogether. You're awake in a world that prefers to stay asleep. That's not just lonely, it's dangerous, because human beings are wired for belonging. When belonging is stripped away, the psychological cost can be crushing. But here's the paradox. Every great change in human history began with someone willing to break the illusion. From abolition to civil rights, from scientific revolutions to spiritual awakenings, progress always starts with the few who see differently. Society fears the truth until it desperately needs it. That's why Jung called this ability both dangerous and essential. It makes you an outsider, but it also makes you a pioneer. And the challenge, the lifelong challenge, is learning how to carry what you see without being destroyed by it. In the next chapter, we'll explore exactly what happens when you reflect people's hidden shadows back to them, and why the most perceptive among us so often become the scapegoats of every group they enter.
Carl Jung noticed something chilling in his patients with extraordinary perception. People didn't just avoid them, they attacked them, not physically, but psychologically. These rare individuals became scapegoats, the problem in every room they entered. Why? Because when you see someone's shadow, you force them to confront what they'd rather ignore. And for most people, that's unbearable. Think about a mirror. A mirror doesn't create flaws, it just reflects them. If you look in a mirror and see you haven't slept in 3 days, the mirror isn't the problem. The exhaustion is. But most people don't want to see their reflection that clearly. They'd rather smash the mirror than face the truth. This is exactly what happens socially. Jung wrote that when someone's hidden shadow is reflected back through another person's perception, the unconscious has only 2 choices: integrate the shadow or attack the mirror. And most people, most of the time, choose attack. That's why highly perceptive people often hear lines like, "You're overreacting. Stop being so negative. Why are you creating drama?" When in reality, they aren't creating anything. They're just naming what's already there. Jung saw this cycle again and again in therapy. 1. The perceptive individual notices something hidden. 2. They express it, often gently. 3. The group or person feels exposed. 4. Instead of owning the shadow, they push it back by blaming the observer. It's a defense mechanism. Projection. Rather than admit, "I'm anxious," someone says, "You're making me anxious." Rather than admit, "I'm angry," they accuse you of hostility. And over time, the perceptive person becomes the designated scapegoat, the lightning rod for everything unacknowledged. What makes this so disorienting is that it feels systematic. People who see too much don't just feel misunderstood, they feel targeted, as if a hidden force is working against them. And in a sense it is, the unconscious collective defense mechanism of the group. Jung called this the scapegoat phenomenon. He wrote, "The bearer of superior perception becomes the repository for all that the group cannot consciously acknowledge about itself." That's why some of the most insightful people in history were treated as outcasts. It wasn't their ideas alone that provoked backlash, it was the discomfort of the collective shadow being forced into the light. We still see it today. The employee who points out corruption in a company often gets fired, not the people committing the corruption. The friend who dares to ask, "Are you really happy?" gets cut off. The kid in school who says the teacher's method doesn't make sense is labeled a troublemaker. In each case, the message is clear. Don't disturb the illusion. Don't be the mirror. Living in this cycle wears people down. Imagine constantly being punished not for being wrong, but for being accurate. Imagine feeling like you carry other people's denied truths on your shoulders. No wonder Jung's patients reported exhaustion, isolation, even despair. And yet Jung believed this pain carried a hidden meaning. It was evidence of a higher capacity, an ability the collective wasn't ready for yet. He saw scapegoats not as failures but as pioneers carrying truths too heavy for their time. Here's the paradox. The very thing that makes you a scapegoat is also what makes you invaluable. History shows that the people society rejects often become the ones who lead transformation. The prophet without honor, the whistleblower, the outsider. These figures are mirrors society tries to break, until one day it realizes it needed that reflection all along. Jung's warning was clear. If you see what others don't, expect resistance. But his promise was equally clear. If you survive the scapegoat stage, your perception can evolve into wisdom the world desperately needs. In the next chapter, we'll look deeper at the different types of intuitive perception Jung identified, 4 distinct ways this gift shows up, and why knowing your type is crucial to understanding both your strengths and your vulnerabilities. Jung didn't stop at describing the gift of seeing what others don't. He went further. In his clinical notes, he noticed that not all highly perceptive people experience this gift the same way. In fact, He identified 4 distinct patterns, 4 ways intuition shows up in real life, and each type carried its own unique strengths and its own unique dangers. Type 1. The feeling intuitive. These are the empaths, the emotional sponges. A feeling intuitive doesn't just sense what others feel, they absorb it. Walk into a room where someone is angry and their chest tightens. Sit next to a grieving friend and they feel the grief in their own body. Jung wrote that this type lives in perpetual emotional contagion. It's like having no shield between your heart and the world. That can be a gift, because they can comfort others with uncanny sensitivity. But it's also a curse. They often can't tell where their emotions end and someone else's begin. They risk drowning in borrowed feelings, mistaking other people's storms for their own. Type 2. The thinking intuitive. If the feeling intuitive reads emotions, the thinking intuitive reads patterns. These are the forecasters, the ones who just know where things are headed. Without running spreadsheets or calculations, they can predict when a relationship will collapse, when a career move will fail, or when a person is about to break down. Jung observed that their accuracy wasn't logical. It was unconscious pattern recognition. Their brain connected dots others didn't even see. The gift here is clarity. But the danger? People don't like being told where their choices are leading. Imagine warning a friend, "This is going to end badly," before they're ready to hear it. Instead of thanking you, they push you away. Thinking intuitives risk becoming isolated prophets, right, but ignored. Type 3. The sensation intuitive. This type experiences intuition through the body. They don't just notice psychological states, they feel them physically. Jung described patients who could sense illness before symptoms appeared, or pick up on someone's fatigue before they admitted it. In modern terms, these people are like human early warning systems. They detect stress in the tension of someone's shoulders or sickness in the tone of their skin. It's a remarkable skill, but also a heavy burden, because constantly feeling other people's physical states can lead to chronic stress, even psychosomatic illness. The line between empathy and self-destruction becomes dangerously thin. Type 4. The pure intuitive. This was the rarest type Jung encountered. These individuals didn't have an extra function, like feeling, thinking, or sensation, to ground their intuition. They simply saw everything. The problem? They couldn't always organize or communicate what they perceived. Imagine receiving a flood of unconscious data without a filter. It's overwhelming. They live in a state of perpetual overload, drowning in perceptions they can't fully explain. The pure intuitive is like standing in front of a giant movie screen with every scene playing at once. The insights are there, but without structure, they can't use them constructively. For this type, the risk isn't just exhaustion, it's collapse. Why this matters? Jung emphasized that knowing your type isn't just interesting, it's survival. Each type requires a different path to integration. The feeling intuitive must learn boundaries. The thinking intuitive must learn patience. The sensation intuitive must learn to protect their body. And the pure intuitive must find ways to ground and structure their perceptions. The point is this: there is no single gift of perception. There are many forms, each beautiful, each dangerous in its own way. And the more you understand which type resonates with you, the better chance you have of transforming the curse into wisdom. So ask yourself, which type are you? Do you absorb emotions until you can't breathe? Do you see patterns and outcomes before anyone else? Do you feel other people's stress in your own body? Or do you simply see too much to explain? Knowing your type doesn't solve the struggle, but it gives you a map. And as Jung insisted, without a map, this gift can destroy you. With a map, it can transform you. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the real dangers Jung identified, the 3 threats that make this discovery so terrifying, and why integration isn't optional if you want to survive seeing what others don't. Up until now, we've been talking about this ability to see what others don't as if it's a strange kind of superpower. But Jung insisted it isn't just unusual, it's dangerous. And he named 3 specific dangers that come with it. Each one is like a hidden trap waiting for those who carry this gift. So let's step into the shadows and walk through them one by one. Danger 1. Breaking the collective illusion. Picture this: a family gathered around the dinner table. Everyone smiles, passes food, tells safe little stories. But underneath, there's tension,
resentments, betrayals, things left unsaid. The perceptive one at the table senses it all, and if they dare to point it out, the room shifts instantly. Jung called this collective unconscious disruption, because groups, whether families, companies, or entire nations, are glued together by silent agreements about what will be acknowledged and what will be ignored. The moment you pierce that bubble, you don't just disturb one person, you destabilize the entire group. That's why truth-tellers throughout history are often silenced, not because they were wrong, but because they revealed what the group wasn't ready to face. Now imagine being that person day after day, year after year, seeing what others deny, feeling the undercurrents no one names. Eventually, it creates what Jung called the problem of the superior function. Your greatest gift becomes your greatest curse. You're awake in a world that prefers sleep, and slowly you become isolated, not just socially but psychologically. Jung wrote, "The curse of consciousness is that it cannot be shared with those who do not possess it." That's brutal. It means you might feel like you're living in a different reality from everyone else. This isn't just loneliness, it's existential exile. To carry perception others can't tolerate is to become, as Jung said, an island of awareness in an ocean of unconsciousness. Danger 3. Losing yourself. And then comes the most frightening danger of all, identity dissolution. Jung noticed that some highly perceptive people don't just pick up on others' emotions, they absorb them until they can't tell what belongs to them and what doesn't. He called this participation mystique. It's like your psychological boundaries dissolve. You're no longer just yourself, you're a sponge, soaking up the unconscious material of everyone around you. At first it feels like empathy, but left unchecked, it becomes annihilation. Think about it. If you're constantly absorbing anger, sadness, or fear from others, where's your own authentic self? Eventually, you risk disappearing, consumed by everything you're picking up. Jung didn't see this as a metaphor. He saw it as a genuine psychological threat. The hidden thread. So there it is, 3 dangers. 1. You destabilize groups by seeing through illusions. 2. You become isolated, cut off from belonging. 3. You risk losing your very self in the flood of perception. Different traps, but all tied to the same thread. Perception without integration. Jung's warning was clear. Seeing too much, without learning how to hold it, can destroy you. But here's the twist. Jung didn't leave it there. He didn't just diagnose the dangers, he offered a path forward. He believed there was a way to carry this perception without being crushed by it, a way to transform the dangers into strengths. And that path he called individuation. In the next chapter, we'll step onto that path together and explore how Jung taught people to survive this dangerous gift, and not just survive, but use it as fuel for transformation. By now it's clear, seeing what others don't isn't just unusual, it's dangerous. But Jung never believed the solution was to shut this gift down. He believed the challenge was to integrate it. Integration was Jung's word for transformation, for taking what feels like a curse and turning it into strength. And he outlined a process, a path with 3 crucial stages. Stage 1, recognition and differentiation. The first step is deceptively simple. Learn to recognize what belongs to you and what doesn't. Jung noticed that many of his perceptive patients were drowning in emotions that weren't even theirs. They carried other people's sadness, other people's rage, other people's fear. No wonder they felt overwhelmed. So he taught them the practice of conscious discrimination. It means pausing and asking, is this feeling mine, or am I absorbing it from someone else? One of his techniques was solitude. He told patients to spend time alone each day, not scrolling, not distracted, but truly alone, so the noise of other people's emotions could settle. Only then could they hear the quiet sound of their own authentic voice. It sounds simple, but it's revolutionary, because the moment you know what's yours and what's not, you begin to reclaim your identity. The second step is even harder, confronting your own darkness. Here's the paradox. People who see the shadows of others often struggle most with their own. They notice dishonesty, selfishness, cruelty in others, but recoil at the thought of owning those same traits inside themselves. Jung warned that until you integrate your own shadow, you'll be disturbed by it everywhere you look. Every liar will enrage you. Every manipulator will repulse you.
Every selfish act will trigger you because you haven't admitted that you too are capable of those things. Integration doesn't mean acting out those traits. It means acknowledging them, saying, yes, I am capable of anger. I am capable of envy. I am capable of selfishness. When you own it, you stop being controlled by it. And something amazing happens. Once you integrate your own shadow, you can see others' shadows with compassion instead of judgment. You stop being a mirror that frightens people and start becoming a mirror that helps them grow. Stage 3. Conscious participation. Finally, Jung taught what he called conscious participation. This is the ability to engage with other people's unconscious material without being overwhelmed by it. Think of it as building a psychological container. Instead of absorbing someone's fear as if it's your own, you learn to hold it, temporarily, gently, while remembering, this belongs to them, not me. Jung emphasized framing insights as offerings, not weapons. Instead of declaring, you're lying, you might ask, are you sure you're okay? Because I sense something deeper. The goal isn't to shock people with your perception. It's to invite them into awareness at a pace they can handle. This shift is crucial. It transforms perception from a burden into a service. Instead of being the scapegoat, you become the guide.
The bigger picture. When you weave these 3 stages together, recognition, shadow integration, and conscious participation, you move from being overwhelmed by your gift to wielding it with wisdom. Jung pointed to examples throughout history. Meister Eckhart, the mystic who transformed his insights into compassionate teaching, or even his own journey, when he nearly collapsed under the weight of his perceptions, but found a way to turn them into psychology that would change the world. Integration doesn't mean you see less. It means you see more wisely. It doesn't mean your perception disappears. It means you finally learn how to carry it. And that brings us to the final step of this journey. What happens when perception is not only integrated, but elevated, when it becomes a gift for humanity itself? In the next chapter, we'll explore Jung's vision of the consciousness pioneer, the rare individual who turns dangerous perception into cultural medicine. So far, we've talked about the gift, the curse, the dangers, and the path of integration. But Jung didn't stop there. He believed that for the rare few who succeed in integrating their extraordinary perception, a new role opens up, something bigger than personal survival. He called these people pioneers of consciousness. From isolation to evolution, Jung saw a pattern in history. The truths that first appear in individuals, the visions, the insights, the perceptions that feel too much, often become the very truths society eventually adopts. He wrote, "What appears in the individual first as psychological insight later manifests in the collective as cultural transformation." In other words, the things you see today that make you feel isolated may be exactly what the world needs tomorrow. Think of it. Copernicus, who first said the Earth revolves around the sun, once ridiculed, now obvious. Or civil rights leaders, silenced in their own time, yet their vision reshaped society. Jung believed highly perceptive individuals serve this same role in the psychological dimension. They glimpse what humanity is not yet ready to face, but will one day have to. Jung described this evolution as a kind of spiritual ladder, 4 stages that turn perception from a private curse into a collective gift. 1. Recognition without overwhelm. The first step is simply owning your gift without collapsing under it, saying, yes, I see more than others do. That doesn't make me broken, it makes me different. 2. Integration without isolation. Next, you weave your perception into daily life without cutting yourself off. You stay authentic but connected. You build relationships that can hold your truth. 3. Service without sacrifice. At this stage, perception becomes something you offer to others, not in a way that drains you, but in a way that nourishes both sides. You don't try to save everyone. You share your gift wisely, where it can actually land. 4. Legacy without attachment. Finally, perception becomes transcendent. You contribute to collective growth without clinging to recognition. You see clearly, you share freely, and you let go of whether people accept it now or later. Pitfalls along the way. Of course, Jung warned of traps.
inflation, believing you're the chosen prophet, withdrawal, retreating into superiority, or martyrdom, sacrificing yourself to carry everyone else's pain. These derail the journey, but the path remains. If you integrate wisely, your perception shifts from curse to contribution. You stop being crushed by what you see and start carrying it in a way that serves something larger. The role of relationships. Jung emphasized you can't do this alone. He spoke about finding the few who understand. Fellow seekers, therapists, friends who can hold depth without fear. These allies are vital, because even pioneers need community, even visionaries need witnesses.
So here's the question. What if your overwhelming sensitivity, your ability to see through masks, isn't a flaw at all? What if it's the beginning of humanity's next step in consciousness? That's exactly what Jung believed. He saw these individuals as culture carriers, people whose integration pushes humanity forward. He reminded us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And if who you are is someone who sees what others don't, then your task is not to hide it, not to fear it, but to develop it into wisdom. Because in the end, the world doesn't just need people who fit in. The world needs people who see beyond. And that brings us full circle, from gift to curse, from danger to integration, and finally, from isolation to service. But before we close, let's step back and remember why this matters. Because seeing what others don't isn't just about psychology, it's about becoming fully, authentically human. Seeing what others don't is dangerous, but it's also destiny. Jung believed people with this gift aren't broken. They're ahead of their time. So if you've ever felt isolated for noticing what others miss, remember, you're not too much. You're exactly what the world needs. In the comments, share which type of intuitive you relate to most. And if you want more on Jung's discoveries, subscribe and join this community of those who see differently. The danger isn't in what you see. The danger is never learning how to use it. I'll see you in the next video.